Come on, living stone. We gotta go on and on and on. Together we can make it. We gotta go on and on and on. Come on, living stone.
Knocks it through. Mullen bursting into the box. Josh Mullen.
Together we can make it.
Mullen's ball across, it's turned in! It's Pittman who's got it! Livingston leads!
Road is long.
Can they get the ball back in? O'Brien.
Lead! And Livingston have the lead!
Man, can score.
If we march together.
The full-time whistle blows and David Hayes celebrates! And the Livingston fans join in exultation.
Come on, living stone.
Livingston have the lead against Rangers, and they are certainly rising to a few occasions on their return to the top flight in Scotland.
Come on, living stone. We gotta go.
Hello, you're listening to Talk Livi, the podcast dedicated to West Lothian's finest football team. However, the Premiership table would probably not suggest that at this moment in time. Livingston Football Club, and proudly sponsored by Strana Apparel. First and foremost, a happy new year to all our listeners, and a happy new year to my good friend, Angus. You join me again, as always, on the podcast. Good Christmas, good New Year, mate.
Not really. As you can probably hear from the sound of my voice, I've been fighting a bit of illness, which I haven't been able to completely shake off yet. So
Alcohol-induced illness, or over the festive period?
I actually think it's because I had a really busy start to December, and then once I calmed down closer to Christmas, that's when it happened. So I think it's because I stopped. So yeah, if there's instances during this podcast where it's like that guy sounds like he's going to like pass out or something like that, it's just because I have got very little voice, and then obviously the football hasn't really done much to cheer me up either. So the spirits have been down lately, but I'm hoping you've had a slightly better one, mate.
Yeah, it's been very busy. We'll be kind of talking about it on this podcast, but genuinely I've had no time to go and sit and record a podcast about all the games that we've had over the festive period. It's been very busy, but very good. Still off until the 8th, so I'm back at work on Monday, so I've got a couple of days kind of to chill and recover from the festive period. But as you say, the football hasn't provided too much joy for us, but we do talk about all the negatives as well as the positives, and there's obviously a lot more negatives for Livingston FC at this moment in time. But as always, search for Talk Livi on your preferred podcast streaming site, where you can follow or subscribe so you don't miss an episode. You can also catch up on all our episodes, as always, that we've done today.
We'll kick off things by discussing our various fixtures over the festive period and how this sees the Lions sitting at the winter break.
And it's the return of question time as we answer questions sent in to us by the listeners.
There was plenty of action over the winter break to report on. Starting off with our defeat at Pittodrie against Aberdeen. This game, of course, seen us break that, unwanted non-goal scoring record, obviously, with Curtis Guthrie getting a goal. But, 2 goals from Bojan Miovski would see us lose the game. I actually think that this is, maybe barring... I think this is quite funny how, we're going to talk about these games. We're probably bookended by the 2 best performances. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of actually replied, I can't remember who it was on Twitter, was talking about folks should really just start getting behind the team, etc. And even on this run, had the performances been of the level of that at Pittodrie and the performance against Hearts there, I don't think there would be the same level of disgruntled fans, in my opinion, if the performances had been up to that level. You can sit and just comment that Aberdeen had a very potent number 9 who took his opportunities, whilst we didn't take our opportunities at the other end. But all in all, I thought it was a genuinely really, really good performance and deserved a lot more from the game. As a minimum, deserved a point from the game. And as you say, it kind of ended that pretty dire goal drought And of all the players to end the goal drought, as well as a man who has been on his own personal goal drought, was Curtis Guthrie. Obviously managed to get the goal, kind of a bit of ping ball in the box, and it broke to Penrice at the back post, who fired it across, and Guthrie's managed to stab it home. But I thought we were really good in the game. I thought Scott Pittman looked like the Scott Pittman of 5 or 6 years ago. He was breaking lines. He was a constant threat in the game. I thought Penners had a very good game, and I think Penners is pretty much a shoo-in for our Player of the Year as it stands at this moment in time. I think he's can hold his head high on his performances over the course of the season. But yeah, just my one gripe from the game is probably the fact that Aberdeen in the second half decided to change their shape a little bit, went to a 4-2-3-1, and the manager's instant response within a couple of minutes was to go and match Aberdeen up. And I think it's probably maybe hypocritical of me, but I've been critical of the manager for not making changes in games. But I don't think he needed to make a change in this game. I thought we were on top. I thought we were causing Aberdeen a lot of problems, creating opportunities. And we probably should have been sticking with what we were doing. And as a result, you've ended up moving Jamie Brandon out to the right wing. You've moved Nottingham out to right back. It's that kind of square pegs round holes to try and accommodate and fit Aberdeen's system. And then Aberdeen have went and gone 2-1 up within 5 or 10 minutes of that tactical tweak. But we've still had opportunities to get a result from the game. Bruce Anderson's probably been the crucial one in that one. But overall, it was a much, much better performance. And I can't be critical of the players for that performance, because there was a lot of positives, in my opinion, to take from that game.
Yeah, I think I remember coming out of that game being like, difference being Bojan Miovski essentially with those two finishes, being quite content with how we'd showed ourselves at, one of the kind of tougher places to go in the league. And I think that's exactly what you're spot on with, Euan, is that, if that performance had been showcased in like the rest of the games, I think you would have seen a lot more kind of not satisfaction from the fans, but a bit more of an understanding that, there has been that kind of application and stuff like that. Whereas, in a couple of the games that we're going to talk about later on, that, yeah, we're not going to be kind of having the same kind of impact. Following that Aberdeen game, I believe, was it the Celtic one, which talk about having two of your toughest away days in the matter of days of each other, away to Pittodrie and then away to Parkhead. And, again, very good performance in that first half, I would say. Of course, our backs to the walls were very much for like the whole game. We saw a host of changes in there. Jack Hamilton came in, Tom Parks came in, I think Luigi De Lucas came in. There was quite a freshened up side to go to Parkhead there, which could go one or two ways. And in that first half, we did see the benefits of a very committed defensive performance on our behalf. Unfortunately, we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot 30 seconds after half time, conceding quite a poor goal, I guess you would say. Palma's been able to cut in, fire like a cross into the box, and Kyogo does what Kyogo does and taps it into the back of the net. And, from there on, I think everybody in the stadium knows what's going to happen in the rest of the game. Luckily, we were able to keep that down to, 1-0 goal, or maybe some slack defending from a corner kick to like Liam Scales to make it 2. But again, not too bad of a performance. The spirits were there in terms of, that defensive solidity, especially with a rotated squad when we were missing the likes of, Mikey Devlin wasn't there either. Tom Parks had to go off injured because of taking like a concussion to blocking the ball with his head and stuff like that. And again, I think that, leading into like Christmas and stuff like that, this game showcased a lot to kind of be positive about still as well. Going to Celtic Park and only losing 2-0. I think obviously we were never going to score at Parkhead. I don't think we created any chances really of note. I think we had, one cross into the box that Joe Hart came in gathered, which meant we had no shots on target whatsoever. But realistically, anybody expecting struggling bottom of the table Livingston to go to Celtic Park and have a go is very, very silly.
Yeah, I think that was the first time this season that a team's recorded 0 shots on goal and a 0 XG as well. But as you say, you can accept it a little bit more when you are going away to Celtic Park or Ibrox. And bear in mind, Celtic were coming off, they were a bit of a wounded animal. They were coming off the back of a couple of poor results against Kilmarnock and Hearts. So naturally, you were expecting them to probably come out the traps flying. And we rode our luck a little bit in the first half, but as you say, it was a kind of resilient, bodies on the line, defensive performance in that first half. I think Tom Parks probably epitomised that with a couple of really good blocks and late interventions, but obviously he had to come off after taking one flush in the head. So, and he did look quite groggy, certainly watching it at home when he was coming off the park. But it kind of reflects the game to an extent against Celtic earlier in the season at our place, in that conceding goals at bad times in the game. And probably the two times you don't want to concede goals right before half time and right after half time, because any team talk that you've had's just gone straight out the window at that point. And the goals are really poor from our point of view. You know what Kyogo's going to be doing. Kyogo's going to be playing right on the edge of offside. And DeLucas is monitoring him. He can see him. And then he allows Kyogo to get the wrong side of him. And Kyogo does what he does. And it's a one-touch finish in and around the kind of 18-yard box. And at that point, it's not damage limitations, but we have been struggling to score goals. So it's a case of just trying to keep yourself in the game as long as possible, and then conceding that second goal so quick fire to that as well. Again, not great from a defensive point of view. Nottingham's come on at that point for Tom Parks, and Liam Scales gets across the front post and glances one into the far corner. Good header, but poor from our point of view that we've allowed him to get across the front post and get that first contact. But again, I thought we plugged away in the game and kept ourselves in it. And I thought Jack Hamilton was a positive from the game. I think he made a couple of really, really good saves in the second half. One in particular from Carter Vickers springs to mind. Good reaction stop down to his left, and which kind of will spark probably a bit of a debate as to why Jack was then brought out the side again. When it came to the St Johnstone game, and then we saw him back between the sticks against Hearts, and again had a good game against Hearts, I thought, including the penalty save. But yeah, the Celtic game's one of those ones where you just come to expect that it's a case of trying to come out damage limitations, especially the position we're in. And as I say, there was a kind of a positive in that we were pretty solid defensively against what is a very, very good Celtic side.
Oh, and that was home to St Johnstone, I believe. And this is kind of a game that kind of probably sums up quite a lot of, maybe our home games this season, where it seems as if we've been set out to go out and not lose and not necessarily go and win. I don't feel like it's a particularly bad performance, but at the same time, I don't think that we've done nearly enough to go and try and a home game against one of the lower league side, one of the teams in the lower end of the table. I don't think we've done enough there to properly trouble them and properly deserve to leave with 3 points. It was a very, very stuffy game between us. The highlight being that Stevie May is now bald, I would say, is the thing that I've taken away from it, to be honest, which was maybe the most stunning thing of that match. But yeah, I think that's where one of the most disappointing showings is that we've had a good chance against a team who I think that we all know are capable of beating. But I think for whatever reasons we've lined up in a way that seems as if we're not really interested in, taking the 3 points. It seems as if we've went out there first and foremost not to lose the game. Where I think, if we're a little bit braver, if we're a little bit more on it, if we have maybe a change in shape to go and chase the game or something like that, don't persist with like the back five the entire match. But it's maybe when you go and sneak and go and you end up with 3 points, and that could end up sparking something that could end up changing. And I think that this is a game where a lot of people's patience is started to run out, most notably in the instance where Joe Newbley has been substituted after being played at right wing back to a mix of boos and a mix of sarcastic cheering, which I haven't heard that too much at the stadium, where somebody's been essentially cheered off the park. We're chasing a game, it's 0-0, Joel Newbley was probably our best attacking threat last season, and it's now reached a point where, for whatever reasons, the system, the manager selection, the form has led to him essentially being carried off the park by fans. Essentially, they'd probably run on the pitch and drag him off for you. What are your initial thoughts to that, Euan? I think from my side of the stadium, it sounded more like sarcastic applause. You didn't really hear too many of the boos. I don't know if that was more so at your case. What did you make of it?
What I heard was more sarcastic kind of cheering when Joel came off. I've got kind of two thoughts in it. One, I never agree with treating one of your own players like that. Regardless of how they're playing, what your thoughts are on them, it's kind of one of those, if you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say it. And I'm sure it's not for the want of trying with Joe. And I think he came out and did press later that week, and we'll obviously touch on him in the Motherwell game. But he came out and was the first to admit that his form's not been of previous seasons for us. And fair play to the big man. He came out and did that press. It would have been easy for him to kind of sit back and just accept that the fans are giving him a bit of stick and go, essentially, fuck this. Why would I come out and do press after that? But you need to give a bit of credit to the big guy coming out and doing that. And yeah, I'll never ever agree with jeering or booing or your own player. I don't see what that achieves. And the guy's obviously short in confidence. My second point on it is I don't think the manager's helping him. I really don't think the manager's helping him. We've said this pretty much all season. I don't think we play a system that gets the best out of Joe. And I think in particular when you've got a player that's quite clearly low in confidence, going and putting him at right wing back, a position that's alien to him, what do you think that's going to achieve? Personally, I just don't see how that's going to ignite a performance or ignite a bit of form for the big fella. And so I kind of, Joe could still perform better, and he's came out and admitted that. But I also think the manager could almost assist him with that by playing him in a position that's more naturally suited to him. And as I say, the right wing back one, as soon as I saw the starting 11 and saw Joe was playing at right wing back, this isn't a dig at the big guy, but I almost just wasn't expecting anything from him because it's not his natural position. It's not a position he's comfortable playing. And yeah, I don't think Martindale is helping him in that instance. But to kind of touch on the game, it was a very nothing first half. If anyone created better opportunities, it was probably St Johnstone. Shamal George made a relatively decent save, albeit an error which led to it, but made a save from Nicky Clark. Second half, I think we probably created the better opportunities in the second half, most notably Scott Pittman when he got in behind. It's a horrendous finish from Pitts, and I'm sure he'd be the first to admit it. But then I think we'll come and talk about his goal probably at Motherwell because it was probably the only highlight from the game. But I've always thought with Pitts, when Pitts has no time to think, he's a much better finisher. But when he has time to think, that's when he panics and his composure goes. And those two chances that he has are prime examples of that type of Scott Pittman opportunity. But the one, and it kind of goes back to maybe the Kilmarnock game a little bit, where played pretty average, nothing in it, but you have a glaring opportunity to go and win it when Bruce Anderson had the penalty. The chance we have with the last kick of the ball that falls to Mikey Devlin, it's been a pretty nothing game, not a lot in it between the two sides. You have that glaring opportunity and you need to bury it. You need to bury it. And I think James McFadden talked about it on Sports Scene when I was watching it, and he said you'd want that chance to fall to somebody else, but then he goes, but who do you want that chance to fall to at Livingston just now? Because nobody's taking chances. And it is one of those, if we were to say it would probably be Bruce Anderson that you'd want that falling to. But even Bruce has been missing opportunities as of late. So, but yeah, that one feels like it probably was a draw, and reflection was probably a fair, albeit I maybe think we slightly edged it, but we need to be going and nicking that and getting the ball rolling, in my opinion, with the opportunity at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what makes it even more devastating in a way, is that we came so close to winning it without properly laying like a proper glove on them. And it's getting to that stage of the season where I think we were looking at, the start of December, when we had, games against Kilmarnock and St Johnstone at home. We were supposed to play Ross County, we're playing Motherwell and stuff like that. And we're looking at that run of games to be like, right, we need to be picking up wins here. We're going into games, these are must-win fixtures and stuff like that. And ultimately we've not done so. So the pressures continue to build. None more so than that game against Motherwell, which, I am very, very thankful I did not end up making the trip. My illness, I succumbed to it, which meant that I was unable to make the journey. But I think we talked about this just before off camera, that the standard was set in the first 20 seconds of that game when a long Motherwell ball was punted up the park. We had Mikey Devlin, our captain, trying to shield the ball out and didn't do so. Ball gets cut back and it takes a deflection to stop us going 1-0 down in 20 seconds. Other than them scoring from that opportunity, it's as bad a start you can have. And that just echoed on for that first at least 20 minutes. And I kid you not, Euan, when I say that first 20 minutes is probably the worst showing I've ever seen from a Livingston team. I remember watching it and it was just attack after attack. Every time we got the ball, we were just giving it away. And then the manner of the goals that we conceded as well. That first one, obviously, we talked at great extent about Joel Newbley in the St Johnstone game. He did himself no favours in this Motherwell match when, turning blindly on the corner of his own box, heavy touch, Motherwell go in, sneak it, and, they make it 1-0. 2-0 comes across, it's Bear gets, it's one long ball over the top. The defence are absolutely nowhere near him. He manages to get to it before Shamal George pokes it wide to make it 2-0. And then the third one, absolutely embarrassing defending as well, where, we give the ball away, we have players diving in, we have players not properly covering the other player either. There was just, and then obviously, suspect goalkeeping as well, I guess you'd say. To be fair to Bear, good composure, good skill to execute it. But there's absolutely no way that we should be conceding a goal like that with the amount of players who could have done better. We're talking about instances here where you can take getting beat by a team if there's like proper execution of quality and stuff like that. That first half against Motherwell was absolutely shambolic and it was all our own doing. We were doing absolutely nothing to hurt them. We were doing everything in our way to hurt ourselves, which was just absolutely painful to watch. I don't think you had the joy of experiencing this, watching it live, but genuinely the worst performance by far we've had since coming up to the top flight.
Yeah, unfortunately, well, I say unfortunately, that's a dig at my family there. But we had kind of our family Christmas day on Saturday, so I couldn't make the game, so I was watching it on Twitter. But because I am a sucker for punishment, Angus, I have watched the game, and I just wanted to feel the pain that other Livingston fans felt that were at the game. And as you say, the tone set in the first 30 seconds with that bit of defending from Mikey Devlin, and the goals are horrendous. I don't know how often you've been to Motherwell, Angus, but I'm losing track of the amount of awful first 45-minute showings in particular we have at Fir Park. That essentially,
We went down 3 goals quite a lot, haven't we?
yeah, first season back up, my mind has been 3 down at half time twice that same season at Fir Park. We've had another couple of kind of similar performances last year in particular, and that kind of run in towards trying to make it into the top 6. I'm losing track of the amount of awful, awful showings. It's just a ground that I never feel confident was going there, and that, the fact we've got a 21-year record of not winning at Fir Park kind of suggests that. But the first goal, as you say, Joe Newbley on the corner of his own box, there's a time and a place to try and play out or try and dribble out with the ball. That's not one of them. And he's obviously dispossessed, and the ball works its way across to Blair Spittle, who pokes it home Theo Bair getting the assist in that instance. And the second goal, again, trying to play out from the back, lose possession at the halfway line, and it's just one ball between our two centre halves, and neither Devlin or Obalai have picked him up. He's just ran in between them. Nobody's taken ownership of that situation, and he's poked it past Jamal George. Maybe slightly questionable goalkeeping again in that instance. We do get back in the game with a sublime finish from Scott Pittman. In fairness, good ball by Montano, who was playing at right wing back, I believe, at the start of this game. And it's a great finish by Pitts, and that's his first of the season. And hopefully, he can start chipping in with a few more off the back of that. But the third goal's just the third goal. I can't. It's littered with individual errors in amongst it. Devlin giving the ball away again, trying to play out from the back. Again, it's one ball, Theo Bair's out wide. Devlin just needs to stand him up in that situation. He's wide of goal. If he does get a shot away, you'd like to think your goalkeeper's going to bail you out in that situation, or you'll get a block in. He's dived in. He's made the decision making, albeit Theo Bair's done really well in that situation, but he's made it. He's made his mind up on what he's going to do. And by going to ground, he's made it easy for him to chop back in. The recovery run from Ayo Obalai is non-existent, to put it bluntly. And then Jamal George, again, he's made Theo Bair's mind up on what he's going to do. He's, instead of being the big obstacle that he is at 6'4", 6'5", he's just went down to ground straight away, and he's made it easy for him to go and dink him. It's just all round, that third goal was just pathetic defending. And to be fair, prior to that, I think we'd actually been okay defensively. I think most of the season, to a degree, we've been okay defensively for large spells of games. But that first half at Motherwell was just shambolic. And the fact that it was only 3-1 is insulting to Motherwell, to be honest, because we deserved to be well and truly out of the game. Second half, we had a couple of opportunities. Devlin had a header, Shinnie had an effort block, but it's all in vain at that point. The game's done and dusted in that first 45 minutes. And the manager, I think, is absolutely right to come out and have a go at the players, in my opinion, in that instance. I think he's been very much shouldering a lot of the blame on players, albeit he has had a little bit of a dig at the forward players. In particular, he's kind of singled out Bruce Anderson at times, which I do think's been a tad harsh. But you know what? That first 45 minutes at Fir Park absolutely deserved that sort of response from the manager, in my opinion. Because it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. And then you see a couple of your senior players coming out and talking about it, i.e. Jason Holt, Andrew Shinnie in the press. And they're in absolute agreement with it, which tells you that the players know that that's not the standard that should be getting set. So I saw a lot of people having a go at Martindale, but I actually think he's overall having a dig at the players is all well and good. The one comment I'd criticise him for is the talk about shopping in Primark. I think that's, we'll come on to talk about players that we're going to bring in, but that comment that one is the one that I took a gripe with, because you've kind of set a standard there when you're talking about that. But overall, I think the players deserve their criticism.
That's that part about Martindale there. I also find this comment discussing about like our tactic and our playing style was a bit strange as well, that he suddenly came out and said that, it was just a whole load of long balls and stuff like that, which I think any neutral who's watched us this season would be able to tell you that that's essentially the game plan that we've went for this entire time. It's not as if this has just not worked in this one game. This is what we've been doing the whole season. So yeah, quite a mixed one. I still have criticism for the manager in that aspect, where I don't think we've done a particular lot to try and help ourselves in terms of trying to get into the game properly and stuff like that. But yeah, absolutely spot on. That performance is absolutely diabolical, and I think that's where a lot of the frustration from fans came from, because it isn't as if we've not been in the form for just a couple of weeks now. It's been a large part of the season. And we've not really seen a lot of players kind of drop out of the team because of that. I think there's a lot of players who have probably been lucky to still been getting their, 45 to like 60 minutes a week and stuff like that. And I think that, maybe this is kind of a necessary point for Martindale where, he's given X, Y, and Z their opportunities and stuff like that. And now we've got to, look for alternative options and stuff. But I guess just to caveat that straight away with, there did seem to be a definite reaction. I mean, you talked about it with Jason Holt and Andrew Shinnie coming and speaking about it. It's all good speaking about it and stuff like that, but I believe that those two players in particular showed a reaction, in the following game against Hearts, which, we're kind of bookending this with a little bit of hope because largely the game against Hearts, Euan, was very, very positive, and it's another multi-million-pound striker that's made a difference at the end of the day, as well as a former winger of ours who didn't score but definitely caused us a whole load of problems.
Yeah, probably a 15-minute spell at the start of the second half is what's proved really costly for us in the game. I think we came out firing. You mentioned those two players in particular. I thought Holt and Shinnie were excellent in the game, genuinely excellent. I think they really stamped their authority on the game early doors. And I thought first half we were really good value for money. And you could hear that from the fans' reaction when the players were going down the tunnel at half time. There was a sense of appreciation for the effort that was being put in, and you could evidently see on the park. I think we went after Hearts. We had a chance early doors with Io Obalai. If he puts that either side as Xander Clark, I think we're 1-0 up. Albeit Clark's ended up pulling off a save there. We thought we had the ball in the net with Curtis Guthrie, but he's been coming back from an offside position when he has had that glancing header. Hearts did have an opportunity in the first half as well, where Lawrence Shankland's had a header come off the crossbar. But second half, I think we all kind of thought Hearts would be better in the second half. And what I think Hearts did really well is they tried to turn us a lot quicker, especially in that first opening segment of the game, and they were trying to isolate guys like Vargas and Forrest up against their centre halves, in particular on our right hand side where Devlin was playing in this game. And I think they did that. Vargas had a warning shot right at the start of the half where he put one just past the post. And then same side, again, we concede the penalty. Why Devlin's going to ground once again, I don't know. Forrest is coming his blind side, just go and deal with the situation. And this is where I'll criticise the manager. I feel Devlin should have came off at that point. I think he was struggling in the game a little bit, but I also think he was quite clearly injured off the back of giving away that penalty. But Jack Hamilton's pulled off a save from Lawrence Shankland from the spot. Brotto-esque, holding the legs out against Larson all those years ago. But, Hearts do get their goal, and once again it comes down that side. Forrest plays the ball inside the Devlin, and Vargas has got in behind. He's got pace to burn, and it's a composed finish from Vargas. And then the quality, as you mentioned, from Lawrence Shankland for the second goal, albeit really poor defending from our point of view. Devlin's backed off. And again, it's one of those, I think he's made Shankland's mind up on what he wants to do. He's gone with the outside of his boot. He's essentially used Devlin as a guide on where he wants to put the ball. Devlin just has to go and engage in that situation and go and put pressure on. There's nobody running in behind him at that point. He needs to go and put pressure on the ball and try and get a block in. But credit to the players, they stuck in there, they hung in. We did witness a first at the weekend, which was a penalty for offside, according to David Hasty over the tannoy. I think he might have got a tad muddled up there, but I can understand what his thinking was in that process. But
Very, very, very harsh, getting called offside and getting dragged 70 yards back to
but yeah, Andrew Shinnie stepped up and very composed, stuck away the penalty and kept us in the game. And we had a couple of chances. Michael Nottingham almost turned one, a dragged shot from Jamie Brandon past Clark, but it wasn't to be. But I came away from that game not content with losing, obviously, but content that I felt like we'd given up everything to try and get a result in the game. And I even think the manager went looking to try and win the game as well later on. We saw a debut for Tete Yengi coming on. I thought he looked very bright when he came on, very good on the ball. And, as I say, there was a lot of positives to take from that performance against Hearts, who are in very good form at this moment in time, might we add. I think they've won 7 in their last 9, if I heard correctly on Sports Sound. So they're a team in decent form, but I think we certainly gave them a fright. And I fully believe if we performed to that level that we showed at Pittodrie, that we showed there against Hearts, we would have won games against Kilmarnock. We would have won that game against St Johnstone. We would have won other games this season as well that have been really tight if we produced that type of performance. But that's the thing. See, between now and the end of the season, that is the minimum level of performance that this team has to provide in order to get us out of this mess.
Yeah, I think it's like a really strange one because we're sitting in this situation, but I think at the end of the day, we all know what these players are capable of. I think if you ask every Livingston supporter, I think you could ask everybody and you'd come up with an 11 and say 3 subs that you'd be relatively happy with, and that you think would be confident of doing a job in the Scottish Premiership. And it's just that the performances haven't been there for whatever reasons. If that's the formation not suiting us, just general application. But that showed us there that what we actually are capable of. And, maybe we do need some freshening up. Maybe a couple of new bodies coming in to the building could be a big help. I don't think we've had the best of transfer windows this year, to be honest with you, Ewan. I don't think that there's really anybody who comes to mind who I would say has really solidified their place in the starting 11 that you're, undroppable now. I think you're still looking at your key players as being, the likes of Obalai probably at the back, Penrice, Montano, Holt and Shinnie, or Holt and Pittman. And yeah, I think that you're looking at that kind of core as still like the same ones who are reliable are the ones who have been here through, the kind of better periods of success at the club. So maybe, a couple more players get a bit more of an opportunity will be a good thing. Prime example for that, in all honesty, Ewan, is Curtis Guthrie, who I don't think anybody can fault Curtis Guthrie's efforts over the last kind of month. I think if you've already said that James Penrice is probably the player of the year so far. I don't think over the last kind of couple of months you could argue that Guthrie's not been in that kind of top 2, 3 performers in the squad. I know that we've been in real bad form and stuff like that, but that's also still taking into consideration that we're talking about a striker who hasn't scored that many goals. He's still applied himself, and I think that he's one of the players who can genuinely be praised for his application over this kind of period in time. Maybe like the skill levels haven't been there and stuff like that from those around him to give him the proper chances and stuff like that. But he's somebody who I feel who got a lot of flack when he came into the club in last season, and rightly so or wrongly so, he's definitely turned it around in my opinion, and I think has been one of the kind of brighter sparks for us this year. It'll be interesting to see how that kind of goes forward, and hopefully he can kind of keep up that form. But yeah, it's weird, Ewan, that it is another loss that we've had, but we do feel ultimately a lot better about it. If we had done this podcast following that Motherwell game, it would be a completely different vibe, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, just to touch on Curtis Guthrie, I agree with you. I think the big guy came in for a lot of flack, in
You
particular at
love
the tail
calling
end of
people
last
the
season.
big guy or the big fella, don't you?
I mean, everyone's big to me,
You
Angus.
want to call Jason Holt the big guy?
No, equal height is probably Holty,
Yeah.
but no, I mean, Curtis is fair play to him because there was a lot of fans, ourselves probably included in that would have been pretty content with seeing him go out the door in the summer. I don't think there would have been much debate about that. But the guy's come in this season in difficult circumstances when the team's struggling. I think he's doing pretty much all he can. He's working with the service at his disposal, which is a lot of long balls, a lot of aerial duels. But I think Tuesday, getting muddled up because of the Christmas fixture schedule. But Tuesday, I think he had the Hearts back 3 occupied the full game. I think he really imposed himself on the game, and that's all you can really ask of him. Again, it's not a dig at him, but we all know he's not a world beater. We all know he's at Livingston for a reason. Every player ends up at Livingston for a reason to a degree. And all you can ask is that effort and applications put in. And yeah, I would agree. I think he's a player that comes out with pass marks for sure. Even in this bad run of form, I think he's done what he can for the team and he's done the job that's being asked of him. But as you say, this podcast would have been very different if we were coming straight off the back of that Motherwell performance for sure. But here's hoping, a couple of weeks away for the team, obviously a wee trip to Turkey involved there as well, to defend the Titanic Cup, our European trophy. Here's hoping they can get a little bit of freshness into the legs and really have a go at this second half of the season. And we've done great escapes before, Angus. Here's hope for the
Mark
great escape.
Burchill back. Get Callum Fordyce, get Kyle Jacobs. We're getting the band back together.
Here's hoping for Great Escape Mark 3. We're delighted to have Strana Apparel as sponsors of Talk Livi. UK based with a Swedish soul, we are Strana. Strana is an independent fashion brand from Scotland who create high quality and stylish attire for on and off the terraces. Inspired by terrace culture, lifestyle and music, all their clothing is designed using quality materials and workmanship to combine the very best style and fit. All of this means you get a premium quality fashion at affordable prices while enjoying a simple and secure service.
As a bonus for Talk Livi listeners, you can get 10% off your order using the code TalkLivi at the checkout. We'll also have some exclusive giveaways during the season, so keep your eyes peeled on our socials for those too. And thanks to Sterner for sponsoring Talk Livi.
It's the return of Talk Livi question time as we answer questions sent in to us by the listeners. First up, Philip Blanchard. My question is, what the fuck is going on? Decent players being dismissed, bottom of the table, can't buy a win. Is it even possible to stay up this season? So I guess what the fuck is going on?
see what you really think, Philip. Again, this is the difference that one game has made, because if we'd recorded this following that Motherwell game, it would been all doom and gloom and the end of the world's coming and stuff like that. That performance against Hearts, though, do I think that we're going to stay up? I think these chances are very, very slim. You're kind of talking about you need about 36 points to kind of stay up, has kind of been maybe the average over the last kind of couple of years, which means we get to get 24 points from the last 18 games, the equivalent of 8 wins. Which, do you really see that kind of happening? Not necessarily. The one thing that I'll put as a caveat to that is that maybe the split could be a benefit in ourselves this year, where the final 5 games of the season are still going to, well, who knows if we're still in the bottom half by then. It's going to be against teams in the bottom half who you would like to give yourself the best chance of winning. We also have, taken that into consideration, there will be 3 games against Ross County. Those 3 games against Ross County are now all must-wins. You have to take maximum points from all of them. Is that something that could be a catalyst that could end up, 1, catching us up with them, 2, breeding more confidence into the team? Who knows? I think that you're looking at those games in all honesty, and if you're not picking up any points from them, then you can probably kiss it goodbye. Very, very slim, to be fair, chances because of the situation we're in. But as you're saying, that performance against Hearts, if we can play like that against the majority of teams in the league, I mean, how many more home games do we have?
I'm not sure, but my look at it is, and I'm going to take the negative approach, right? If you compare it to when the season got cut short a few years ago and Hearts were kicking up a massive fuss, and I think there was 8 games to go, and Hearts had won 4 games in 30. My argument was, Are Hearts realistically going to go and win 4 or 5 of the last 8 games when they've won 4 games in 30? No. Realistically, probability suggests no. We've won 2 games in 21 so far this season. And if you go towards looking at a calendar year, we've got something like a 14% win rate. Probability would suggest no. But as you say, if you can go, and I said this at the start of the season, the head-to-heads are going to be what makes or breaks our season, I feel. Those ones against Ross County, the ones against St Johnstone, the ones against Motherwell, even looking slightly higher up the table in teams that you think might finish in the bottom 6, the likes of Dundee. If you can try and keep these teams within touching distance come the split, you give yourself a chance. And that's all we can really look at trying to do. Do I realistically see us going and winning 6 or 7 games in our last 17 when we're on a 13-game run without a win and only scoring 3 goals? My realist head is saying no. But I'd feel not content getting relegated, right? I'd never be content with us being relegated. But see if we go down fighting with that type of performance we showed against Hearts and the performance against Aberdeen, then I'd feel better knowing that we gave it as good a shot as we possibly could. And as I say, I think between now and the split, it is just a case of trying to keep teams in contact and get into the split with an opportunity to try and claw back. And as you say, have those head-to-heads.
But the next 2 games that we have once we come back for the winter break is home to Dundee and home to Ross County in some capacity. I don't know if that's the other way around or if that's the correct way around. You're looking for at least 4 points from that 6.
I don't even think 4 points does it, Angus. I think you need to go and get 6, in my
I
opinion.
think as a start, I think, because Dundee could possibly end up reaching the top 6, but I don't think you can afford to. You need to win one of them, and I don't think you can lose one of them though. So I think 4 for the time being would be a start in a way, because you need obviously get closer to the other teams and everything like that. If you end up losing both of them or you draw both of them, I think that's it gone for sure.
Yeah. And if even when you're looking at those taking 4 points, again, realistically, the 3 points has to come against Ross County if you're looking at the league table and the team that you want to try and keep in touching distance of you. So yeah, I agree. But personally, I think we need to take maximum points. We can't at this stage of the season, we can't be settling for draws pretty much anywhere against teams in the bottom half of the league. The teams in Dundee will be content with the draw. Ross County will be content with the draw because it just keeps that gap. The only way you're going to make that gap get smaller is by winning games of football. And this league is so tight. 2 or 3 wins on the spin can make a drastic change to that league table. And personally, I think it needs to be 2 wins from those 2 games when we come back from the split. And what you're looking at is hopefully getting a decent result in the Scottish Cup tie against Wraith Rovers, which will be a banana skin of a cup tie. But you're wanting to get a little bit of confidence going into those games. You want to try and have that bounce of what a victory can do for the team's confidence. But I don't think it's possible. Just my sensible head is on thinking probability suggests that you're not going to go and win 6 or 7 games between now and the end of the season when you've only won 2. So yeah, sorry, Philip. Speaking of Phillips, Philip Cross, regular listener.
He sounds crossed by the sound of this question.
What do you think is stopping the board getting rid of Martindale?
Straight
to it, no bullshit.
Well, number one, there will be an element of confidence if they believe that Martindale is the man for the job for sure, considering the budgets that he's worked with in the past and stuff like that, and seeing all the work that he does behind the scenes, which maybe goes a little bit unnoticed. That's probably the main factor. Obviously, Davey has a big kind of say in the helping of the running of the club in terms of like how we apply a lot of our costs and stuff like that on the pitch and everything like that. Yeah, it's a bit more nuanced, I guess, than like most other kind of teams, and that's probably why you've not seen as much kind of media coverage and that, because there's a bit more of an understanding as to what Davies' kind of role is, and that he's more than just kind of like a first team coach in a way. I would say that that's probably the biggest factor in terms of that, is that he is more of a manager than more than just the first team coach at the club. He is doing X, Y, and Z all about, and yeah, they'll definitely have confidence in that he's the one to turn it around, I would say.
But for me, there's a massive degree in that Martindale does have so much credit in the bank, given what he's helped the club achieve over the last 10 years in his various roles at the football club. I don't think that can go unnoticed completely. What I would say is any other manager that would have gone on this run of form that we've had for the last 11 to 12 months, they wouldn't be in a job. It's as simple as that. So I think he does have quite a safe job at Livingston. I fully believe if we were to get relegated, Martindale would be given the opportunity to try and get us out from the Championship. I've said that even prior to this season. I've always thought that's the sort of credit in the bank that he has at the football club. But as you say, there's the caveat of how involved Davy is with the running of the football club. Am I thinking maybe a bit too deep into it? But we have a couple of upcoming court cases as well, potentially with the likes of Neil Hogarth, Neil Rankin involved. Is it a case that a change of manager is probably not the best thing? A bit more unsettlement at the football club behind the scenes. I don't know if that's playing a factor as well. What other manager is going to want to come into the club when you've got that sort of stuff hanging over? Those are maybe other factors which, again, me deep diving into it and trying to be an investigative journalist is maybe thinking a bit too deep into it. But, I do think these factors probably play a part in it as well. And for me, though, look, as much as I've been critical of the manager, I still have so much time for the manager. He's always been really good with us when he's been on the podcast. And I fully support the manager until such time as he's no longer the manager of the football club, is my eyes with it. I've kind of always had that approach with almost any manager that's been at the club. I'm going to fully support them until such time as they're no longer there. And Davy's no exception to that. And I feel Davy, given what he's given the football club, does deserve as much support as possible until such time as his time does come to an end, which, I'm sure will happen at some point. But I could absolutely understand if there was a change in manager. I can absolutely understand it given the run of form, but I also feel that he does have that much credit in the bank that he'll be given the opportunity to try and get us out this mess. Kind of leads on a little bit to a question from Robbie Drysdale again, kind of relating to the manager. If Martindale somehow pulls off a miracle and keeps us in the Premiership, do you hold on to him or get someone else in?
Well, if he pulls it off, yeah, you can't really sack him following that, I would say. You're talking about a monumental turnaround there. I don't know if is this meant to be, do we cut our losses now, or because I feel like if we stay up, then it's quite straightforward that you can't really sack him following that, right?
I mean, my opinion is if he keeps us in the league, he's done his job, hasn't he? He's achieved the overall objective of a Livingston manager, which is to keep us in this league. So for me, he would absolutely 100% keep his job, especially given the position we're in at this moment in time. We've talked about those great escapes that we had under Richard Gough, under Mark Burchill. Would it top those? Quite possibly. So, I think it's a no-brainer. David would keep his job. A friend of the podcast, Menzie, St Johnstone fan, I think was going fishing when we put this up the other day. Do you think St Johnstone done famous Old Firm trick by trying to get the newspapers to write about Martindale's Saints manager with no intention of hiring him, just so he loses sight of things at Livy and affects your season and saves Saints in the league? I'm going to tell you now, Menzie, I know on good authority that Gus McPherson phoned the football club looking to speak to Davy Martindale. That's all I'm going to say.
Next one, a little bit of a bittersweet one, I guess, from Kieran Tennant. With Callum Carson moving on, do you think there could be room for someone from the forum slash podcast slash trust to take over in terms of having access to pressers to keep a link between fans and the club? Whilst we're recording this, year, and I got like a group email from Callum basically saying his goodbyes to the kind of team at like the Courier and stuff like that, which is a little bit emotional. I think that as much crap as we like to give Callum and stuff like that, and you'll probably get a good kick listening to us talking about this here. I think that we speak for everybody when we just want to take a moment to thank Callum for all the hard work that he's done over the last 10 years. I don't think that anybody could say anything other than what a great job Callum's done and what a great guy to have around the club. The information that he's given to the club, the access and stuff like that, the way that he's kept fans updated, and the way that he's always kind of being very vocal and active on like the kind of forums, answering whatever questions, some daft, some serious, whatever, like going from everything, and just every kind of help that he's given us. For myself personally, the work that he's allowed me to get involved in, the club that I've always loved and stuff like that. He's obviously came on to here a couple of times in that as well. So yeah, massive thanks to Callum for his time at the club. Well, at the Courier, working on the club.
Yeah, I have to say, I've got to know Callum really well over the years with his coverage of the football club, and I would class him as a really good friend off the back of it. And I was gutted when he obviously let us know that he was going to be moving away from the Courier and onto a new job. Obviously, a bit of jigging at Reach PLC, the Daily Record, who employ him. And yeah, I'm absolutely gutted that we're losing somebody as valuable, in my opinion, to the football club as Callum. His coverage of the football club and in general sport in West Lothian has been second to none. And the amount of information he gives fans, he's always very transparent with the fans in terms of what information he's been given by various managers over his time at the football club. He's certainly interviewed a few over his time. There was at the start, I think it was quite turmoil would be the best way to put it, with the managerial changes that we went through at that time. But he's also got to witness probably the most successful spell in the club's history, I would say, as well, in that time. And again, as I say, his coverage has been second to none. So want to wish Callum the absolute best in his new job, and hope Airdrie's women get absolutely battered by the Lionesses in his fight. I think is that his final game covering the
I
club.
think so. I think it is. Yeah.
So I hope he goes away crying. But no, best of luck to Callum. As I say, a very good friend off the back of what he's done at the football club, and we'll obviously be staying in touch with him as well. But to kind of answer the question from Kieran, don't know about you, Angus, but the podcast is a hobby for me, and I actually do have a full-time job, believe it or not. That I work Monday to Friday, and I also work part-time at the weekends. So for me to be able to manage the pressers on a Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday morning, I think I would genuinely struggle, Kieran. I'm not going to lie. So, but hopefully there is somebody that tries to keep in touch. I know the club do put up audio of and videos of the press conferences and things like that. But it's these conversations that Carson has with the players, the manager, the
I think
information
that
that
there
gets
would
to fans
be.
that he's obviously referring to.
I think that there would be interest in doing so. It's just I'm unsure what will happen with the Courier now. Then, if the person who's writing up most of the stuff, like, is the Courier going to just disappear now in general, or like who's going to be kind of sent along for that, or are they just going to be using the stuff from the extracts from like the Daily Record and stuff like that? In terms of allowing the likes of ourselves or somebody from the forum and that media personnel and doing this like at uni and stuff like that can be quite funny at times. I'll use an example from my current uni situation where we have like our news days, and our lecturer is David Tanner, and for like our news days you have to come up with like original stories and that. And he's like, all right, why don't you guys go and do like it was like the Scotland women's national team like press conference that was at Orion only 2 months ago or something, I believe. And it's him who's got like the actual contact for it, gave us the contact to go and set up this thing, get it back. Oh yeah, we don't allow for non kind of industry members or like students to come and do it. So I think that that's the kind of thing that you're looking at. It's not very likely that, you know, many places will allow for non, I don't know, like licensed or, you know, qualified kind of people to do it. But, you know, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think that there will be definitely interest, and, you know, I'm assuming for the courier is going to be continuing. I don't think I've heard anything saying that it's not. So surely something is going to be taken over from it. I'm not too sure, but maybe we have to ask Callum.
Maybe need to get in touch with Callum a lot sooner than I thought. But yeah, I know we as a podcast used to get really good access in terms of post-match and after games. I don't know if that's something that could continue, but again, that's, you know, it doesn't answer the question in terms of press conferences and things like that. There was another element to Kieran's question, which was with other clubs utilising top level loans from the English Premiership, Owen Beck at Dundee and Beereth at Motherwell being prime examples. These clubs won't be paying massive portion of wages. We're not in a position to shoot our shot and ask the question. And he gave an example, I think it's Kane Edwards at Arsenal as a potential one. We've spoke about this before, Angus, and we'll use maybe a couple of seasons ago where we had a few loan deals in the building. For every Odin Bailey, who was a success story as a loan player, that same season we had Caleb Chukwuemeka, Sebastian Soto and Ben Williamson, who weren't successful loan deals. Loan deals are great when they work. It's as simple as that. You know, you can't predict, and it's the same with any permanent signing as well coming into the building. You can't predict if they're going to be a hit or a miss. Obviously, Owen Beck has been sensational for Dundee. Really, really fantastic bit of business for them, and I can see he's been recalled by Liverpool because injuries to Simicast and Robertson down there, and it looks like he's going to be getting some game time there. And I believe both Celtic and Rangers have made approaches for him off the back of it. So he's obviously had a very successful stint up here. The boy Beereth as well, I think, is a really good player. He's on my fantasy team actually as well. He's been good for a goal for Motherwell. But I do think when we are in that budget constraint that we do have, it's always worth asking the question. But there's no guarantee that these guys are going to come up. I think Davey spoke about it, and players coming on loan, especially from down south, and the example that Kieran's used there at EPL2, essentially reserve football. But there's a big, big difference between reserve football, almost age group football, 23s, and then playing first team football up here. There is a really significant difference. And I think this January window is even more difficult because these guys have a period where they need to bed in. You're relying on them hitting the ground running instantly when they come up here. And we saw that probably best examples are Chukwuemeka, Soto. You know, it took them a good 2 to 3 months before they looked like they were up to speed to play regularly for our first team. And at this moment in time, we can't afford that. We need guys to come in and hit the ground running straight away.
Yeah, spot on. That season is the perfect example of it, which is funny because I think Odin Bailey came on loan from us from the lowest ranked club at the time. I believe that
Yeah,
Neko was Aston Villa, and I think that Soto was
Norwich.
Norwich in the Premier League at the time, I think as well. So, you know, him coming from Birmingham was maybe the surprise that he was the one who, you know, was a success. But yeah, it's always a gamble. Is it worth having a wee look at? I know obviously you mentioned Ben Williamson there as well. We also had Liam Kelly on loan initially and stuff like that in the kind of lower leagues. We've had a wee bit of success from there. Is there anybody in those kind of setups with like the Rangers or even Celtic who you can maybe nab a wee loan of and, you know, give more game time to? Not too sure. But yeah, it's always a market that breeds different kind of results, isn't it? Because there is an unpredictability with, you know, how a player takes to an environment, taken to the pressure of the situations, or even just like the, you know, the jump to actual first team proper football as well. But you would like to think that somebody, you know, if this guy's listening, somebody from Arsenal, that they'd be able to come up and do somewhat of a job. But, you know, how many times do you see it on Twitter where, you know, English football fans are like, oh, so and so is going to like walk this league and all of that. It's going to be like so easy for him. And then 2 months later, he's back down the road. So yeah, you can never really tell. I mean, looks like so the long staffs who were up at, you know, up here, how come they've, you know, managed to just completely fall back and ended up in the English Premiership and stuff like that. Like the one who was at Aberdeen, scored against Man U, I believe, after being, absolutely hopeless for Aberdeen. So yeah, it's one you can never really tell what's going to go on, can you? Davies mentioned 3 new faces after the 2 announced, centre back, a striker, and another. Any thoughts on who you want to see coming in?
Yeah, just to kind of touch on the couple of arrivals and faces who have left the football club since we were last on. So Sean Donnellan, right back, right wing back, right centre back, can play various positions, coming in from Torquay. So National League South seems to be the pre-mark market that Davy Martindale has mentioned. I mean, what's your thoughts on that, Angus, when the manager comes out and says, we are shopping in pre-mark, the following day announces a signing? If you're the new signing coming in, how would you take that?
I think it can be definitely a bit more demoralising, because it's like, oh well. I try to talk about it in a way, because it's like ending up at Livingston, it's not going to be like a glamorous signing, but like the way it's been made out, it's like, oh, we're stuck with this guy, essentially, is what's kind of happened. And yeah, I'm not too kind of a big a fan of kind of burying that, but I think Davey has came out and in that post-match interview against Hearts, he's came out and kind of apologised for that kind of remark, saying that he's maybe been a little bit too literal with it. This kind of figure of speech as being too far in the way that he's kind of described these kind of players. Yeah, I can't see that it's very beneficial at all, and it doesn't make us look attractive as a club either, does it?
No, that's probably my gripe with it, and I absolutely get that the manager's probably made a flippant remark there. But you know what the media are like, you know what social media is like, and they've absolutely latched onto it. I saw the quote tweets Teddy Yengi's announcement, and it was just that the new signing from Primark. There was a lot of folks saying the Primark bags must have got a lot bigger with him being 6'5" as well. But yeah, to kind of touch on the first one, Sean Donnellan coming in from Torquay United, the way Davy's thinking about is that allowed a centre back to move on. Will it see maybe one of the right backs, right wing backs that we currently have in Brandon or Miles Welsh Hayes moving on as well? Given that he's got this player who can cover a number of positions, but the way Davy looked at it was it allowed budget further up the pitch. And we've also seen Luigi De Lucas move on due to being homesick. Kind of thoughts on Luigi moving on? For me, Luigi was one of these classic examples of could be a 9 out of 10, but when he was bad, he was really bad. And he went through a spell this season where I think it was when we played the Old Firm, and maybe a couple of games after that, he had a direct role in about 90% of the goals we conceded. We talked about that Celtic game as well, just a classic switch off moment. He seems to have those a lot. Are we disappointed he's moved on, or
I would say a little bit, because I do think you're absolutely spot on with that analysis there. Because I think for the first 2 months of the season, I think that he was probably one of the runners for Player of the Year, in all honesty. But as you said, that little spell was pretty disastrous, where a lot of goals were being conceded on behalf of there. What I would say as well is that there's probably some other defenders in the team who've maybe been a little bit lucky to gain such game time in that as well, and to remain in the team, and to not be dropped for certain performances. But I wish Luigi all the best, because I think that on his day, very very good defender. Even at Celtic Park there, that first half, I thought he was absolutely excellent. But yeah, I think it's one that's an interesting one to look at. Is it worthwhile getting rid of somebody like Luigi to then bring in somebody who, not to be like too negative about this signing or anything like that, Euan, and I want to give the guy a chance and everything like that. A guy who's approaching kind of like 30s, was he like 27, 28 or something like right now,
27? Yeah, I think.
playing in the sixth tier of English football with a team who are more than happy for him to cut his contract short and come to us. Is it an upgrade? I wouldn't. I'm not too sure. We've seen the likes of Miles Welch Hayes coming from maybe a summer kind of level and not really kind of get much game time. Is this going to be too much of a difference with Sean Donnellan? I'm not too sure. I think that we may have missed a little bit of a trick. We're talking about that we're only offering wages in the 300, in the three figure kind of bracket. Boy, Lewis Strapp, who's at Morton right now, who was without our club until he rejoined them, whose contract I think comes up sometime this month for Morton. Is he going to be on four figures? Is he somebody that you could entice to come to the club? I think we're in desperate need of a left-sided defender. He can play as a left wing back or he can play as a left centre back, no problem. He's got a long throw, which we know that Davey loves
We
as well.
love a long throw. We
Like he's
love
got
a
like
long throw.
an actual long throw as well, not one like. So, is that somebody closer to the market that you'd maybe be able to entice for, say, even half a season, and then be like, you can go and prove that you can play in the top flight, and then you can go and get a bigger move that he probably deserves to have. I don't know. I think that somebody like him ending up back at Morton is very, very surprising. And I know he was training with Kilmarnock for a bit, but if they're packed at the back, with the defensive options that they've got, is that somebody that we should be looking at? I absolutely think so.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to kind of comment on Sean Donnell because let's be honest, our coverage of the sixth tier in English football, and that's not a dig at the level that he's been playing at. It's a lot higher level than either me or you have played at. So, but we can't really comment. We don't know enough about the guy to kind of pass judgment on that.
It's
We
just
have had,
basically off of what the signings from that kind of level have been like before, to be
yeah,
honest.
exactly, and we have had another arrival who has come from a slightly higher level, in fairness, in Tete Yengi, big Aussie centre forward, and we know what our last Aussie centre forward was like. So you can sit and live in hope that he produces a Lyndon Dykes-esque type spell at Livingston. But he's arrived from Ipswich Town. He's had loan spells over in Finland recently where he was relatively successful, certainly in one of his spells. We did actually get a glimpse of him at the weekend against Hearts. I quite liked the look of him. I thought there was a lot of positives. I thought he dropped off the front really well and linked the game. Not comparing him straight away, but quite similar to what Shanklin does quite a lot in terms of dropping into little pockets and linking the game really well. Thought he did that, and he's obviously he's a big unit as well, as well. But there were certainly positives from his little cameo at the weekend.
Yeah, and I think that that's what you're kind of looking for, that kind of glimpse early on straight away. We talked about there to a great extent about players coming in and having hit the ground running. The fact that we're at that kind of stage right now, and that's the kind of performance we've seen from somebody who's literally just in the door. I can't imagine they would have trained too much with the team before the game. Now we'll get to go away to Turkey with the rest of the team and actually bond with them. Hopefully, this is a good stroke of luck that we've got and being able to pick up a quality player.
Yeah, in terms of other players, I've heard murmurings from folk in terms of players going out the door. One was Bruce Anderson. How much truth there is in it, but I've heard a few folk talk Hearts, I've heard a few folk talk Kilmarnock, so it would make sense that you're bringing in a centre forward in that case if that was to be believed. However, I don't know how much truth is in these rumours that go about Twitter or kind of in amongst fans. Another rumour I've heard, which I think there's a bit more to it, is Andy Halliday coming in on loan from Hearts. I think the thought process would be with Halliday coming in and playing almost as a six and allowing other players, the likes of Pittman or Shinnie, to play a little bit further forward in the system that we have. But I've heard a lot of Hearts fans talking about that one. And obviously, Andy Halliday does have ties to the football club, it being the club that gave him his opportunity in senior football. And, he was obviously a very different player when he was with us as a young pupper. But yeah, what would you make of someone of Andy Halliday's stature coming in?
I would absolutely take it, to be honest with you, Ian. I think that there's a lot of fans who would maybe turn their nose up to Andy Halliday, and I think that's maybe more so to do with his connections to a particular club, probably more so than anything. But I think if you're looking at it objectively, it's a player who's played for top half level teams in the Scottish Premiership. He's somebody who's got that nitty gritty bit about him, who can stick in when it's needed to be done. He's got experience, can be classed as a leader. I mean, you don't end up playing for Rangers and Hearts without being, somewhat of a decent player. And, if you could end up with a midfield of Halliday, Holt, and either Shinnie or Kelly or Pittman, I think that that's very promising. You're also talking about a player who can fill in at left back, maybe not so much as the left kind of like the left wing back, but I think there's a lot of things that you could look at objectively with Halliday that would be a very, very positive signing to bring into the building. I think he would bring a lot to the club for sure.
I don't see where the negatives come with Halliday. The only thing you could maybe question is he the type of player that we're looking for? Somebody who plays a little bit deeper in midfield, like Andy has been playing in recent years, but he can play a little bit further forward. We have seen that. He's very versatile. He's played a number of positions throughout his career, be that left back, wing back.
He's a former top goal scorer for Livingston in the season as well before.
Exactly. So for me, I would think it would be a really positive bit of business if Andy was to return to the football club, and less about the Rangers ties. He's one of our own. He came through our academy. He's one of ours, really, deep down, deep down. But another thing Kieran kind of pointed out was maybe worth a wee interview with someone from the trust too, in order to push membership more so to try and get a better understanding of what's going on behind the scenes at the football club just now, because there's a lot of kind of chatter on the forums with regards to the upcoming potential court cases with Neil Hogarth, Neil Rankin. I kind of touched on it earlier on, but the trust put up, I don't think the trust are that vocal very often, but I do believe they've kind of had a gradually diminishing board or over the last few years, and yeah, they put up what I could only describe as a fairly worrying post on Facebook, which probably Livingston fans are quite reactive and saw this, and obviously alarm bells start ringing. So yeah, I think having seen that, they have posted up a few other times. I think they do have a plan to have obviously their AGM and then try and include or incorporate a kind of fans forum element into that as well. And I think John Ward's also reached out to them as well to have discussions on that front and be a presence from the football club at any meetings for the trust. So that's all kind of positive, but it might be something we'll get further down the line. Another question that we had was at GBoy1 on Twitter. If we have no budget, why are the club flying to Turkey when they need to pay for flights?
I feel like this is going to be something that comes out in the next couple of weeks, and every other team in the league is going to start harping on about this. So just put it out straight away. It's been paid for by the resort, by that historic Titanic Cup winning side. We had been invited back out, all expenses paid. It's not coming out of our own budget. So that's something for people to not worry about. That it's not as if we're sacking Leicester and bringing in another player, or we're cutting people off or something like that to make way for this trip. Because if that were the case, I think you'd be right to criticise the club and everything like that. However, it isn't being taken out of our own budget, which is, a no-brainer to then take advantage of this opportunity.
Yeah, I know certainly the stay at the resort and everything like that was already paid. I'm not 100% sure of the flights. I don't know if you've heard differently, but the club didn't go out in the summer. We did everything pre-season wise at home this year, when normally in the past we have gone out, and that was to kind of negate budget issues. But the fact that the vast majority of the trip has been paid for, and I think previous trips have also been endorsed, or a lot of has been provided by sponsorship from club sponsors and things like that in the past. So I don't think these trips have actually cost the club a great deal of money. I think they have done it on a budget, or it's been paid for through other sources of income in terms of sponsorship and things like that. So yeah, I wouldn't be overly worried about the cost of, or what costs are involved with that, because as you say,
The only thing I would be worried about is that it's Jen who's had to, organise it and stuff like that. So if they end up in like the wrong place for that, I wouldn't be surprised. But hopefully we can end up with a new squad that comes back and is, completely great on the back of that as well. So, who knows?
The only thing I would question on the cost of the football club is if everyone comes back with a full head of hair and new teeth. That would probably be my biggest concern, is if you start seeing a load of Roberto Firmino teeth in our squad.
Is there anybody in the team who's bald?
Put it this way, if our entire dugout comes back with hair.
Yeah. The artificial surface has somehow ended up on the heads of Mark Rice and Neil Hastings.
So yeah, if we see full heads of hair on our managerial team after the winter break, then there's something very fishy going on when they've been over in Turkey. But yeah, the last couple of questions from Ross Wishart. We lost key players and our budget is always highlighted, but do you believe that we have an overall stronger squad this season? Just need to find a system and go for it and stop trying to cancel out the opposition. Obviously, Ross must listen to us a lot on the podcast because that's a recurring theme that we've kind of talked about. But in terms of the actual squad, what's your thoughts on it if you compare it to last season? I don't think there's a great deal of difference in the squad, minus probably 2 or 3 players.
Yeah, you're probably breaking it down to you're looking at, Michael Devlin for Jack Fitzwater. The thing that probably sway it for me is the loss of probably Omiyonga. I don't think we've really replaced him. I think going back 2 years as well, this is the main one that I always kind of harp on about as well, is that we lost Alan Forrest and we lost Odin Bailey and didn't replace them. So I'd say that it's gradually been getting like maybe slightly worse. I don't think that maybe the summer there was where we've lost the kind of more influential ones. Obviously, Nicky Devlin's moved on as well. We've not really kind of been able to solidify a right back kind of position there as well. So yeah, I think gradually, I think it's what happens with like kind of most teams is that you continually lose players in certain areas and it's hard to continually replace them. So I think that kind of combination of losing Alan Forrest, losing Omiyonga, losing Nicky Devlin and losing Jack Fitzwater over the last 2 years has probably been bigger than we've maybe expected it to be with what we've kind of brought in. I think in terms of leadership front, you've lost 2 of the defenders who were very, very key for a number of seasons. And then, to put it bluntly, Alan Forrest and Omiyonga and Bailey, probably the best, 3 of the kind of best players have played for us in that period as well. So compared to last season, maybe not massively so, but the characters that we've lost were probably bigger than it maybe has been before. And those that we've brought in this season maybe necessarily haven't replaced it on that front. The likes of your Mo Sangaris and stuff like that, I don't think have really came in and replaced those kind of big figures in the squad.
I don't think it's one window that's made or broke this squad. I think it's probably a couple of seasons worth of recruitment going back to the start of last season. Really, the recruitment last summer I don't think was particularly effective. As you say, you already lost players that summer in the likes of, you mentioned the likes of Forrest, the likes of Bailey, guys like that moved on. So you lost a lot of creative spark in your team. So we didn't really replace that at the time. The hope was that Bahambula would replicate one side and Nubly would be the other, but obviously Bahambula's not really worked out. I'm sure he'll be a player that will likely move on if possible in January. And then this window here, again, I don't think we've fully replaced guys that have moved on. Jack Fitzwater, I think, probably the thought process was the Lucas would be his replacement going into the new season, but again, that one's obviously not materialised as hoped. Nicky Devlin was always going to be a very difficult player to replace, being at the club for 4 years, staple at right back, right wing back. Could also play centre back and your captain for 2 of those years as well, and just a really good character and leader about the place. So I think Nicky's proved a bigger loss than maybe a lot of fans would have anticipated, and given the criticism Nicky took at the tail end of last season from fans, I think they would bite your hand off to have somebody like him back in the building. And yeah, I kind of agree. I think there's been a gradual decline in the squad over the last couple of seasons, and look, that's going to naturally happen when you're working on our sort of budget. You're not always going to replicate the quality that you've got going out the building coming in, and I think that's just been a realism. However, there is still very much the core of a squad that's finished 7th and 8th in the last couple of seasons and comfortably retained their Premiership status. So you wouldn't have maybe expected there to be such a drastic drop off this season. Yeah, so I do think we have a squad capable of staying in this league. We've kind of made it very clear on the podcast that we feel we have the players at our disposal to get results in this league, but it is how we've set up. I think we need to maybe tweak that. Maybe that's something that the manager's going to look at over the winter break. You never know.
Fingers crossed. Not too much to add to that. Again, you're talking about it, the budget and stuff like that. We've replaced Nicky Devlin, who's went to go and play for like a European side with, players from the sixth tier of English football. So I think that shows you exactly the kind of thing we're working with. But yeah, that core of the team, more than good enough in our opinion to, be playing better than, what we've been showcasing recently. But could we be helped by the public investment fund and Ross Wishart again? There's a certain player who's, going to be up his contract at the end of the season. Are we sleeping on a certain Kylian Mbappe coming to West Lothian's finest football team, as he put it?
Yeah, I mean, he's got the nickname Donatello, which suggests that he likes a bit of pizza, likes a bit of pasta. We have a sponsor called Tony Macaroni who supply that in demand to the football club. I mean, does little Donatello want to come along and save our season? Who knows? But
We'll Tello add to Teto and
Oh, jeez. Yeah. I mean, if somebody from the Public Investment Fund does happen to listen to Talk Livi, likes a bit of Strana Clobber, I'm sure we could get in touch with our sponsors, help you out. Not that you're short of money if you're involved with the Public Investment Fund, but everyone loves a freebie. And I'm sure the club would happily get in touch with Tony Max and help entice Kylian Mbappe to West Lothian. But I'm sure Mbappe has been dreaming of playing with Curtis Guthrie. I'm sure I'm sure he watches Sports Scene at the weekend, just going, God, the work I could do working with somebody like KG28. I just, God, I'd score goals for fun. But yeah, I mean, we can dream, can't we? But who knows? Tete Yengi might be the next Mbappe. We don't know. But thanks to all our listeners for sending in those questions. It was quite a short period, but we got loads of questions from you, so thank you very much for that, and I'm sure we'll do that later on in the season as well.
That's it for this week's episode of Talk Livi. We really appreciate you tuning in every week, and we'd love to hear your feedback. You can leave us a review on iTunes or drop us a message on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram.
As Angus said, we're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, so simply search Talk Livi to find us, and you'll find all the links to our weekly episodes on there, and any shares and likes are always appreciated as well. All our episodes are available on all the usual podcast streaming sites, including iTunes and Spotify. We're also on YouTube, and we'd love you to subscribe to the channel. If none of those options suit you though, all you have to do is head to our website, talklivipodcast.libsyn.com, where you'll find every single episode we've done over the last few years.
That's it for this week, and we'll be back in, a couple of weeks' time once the winter breaks came up and we've faced Raith Rovers in a daunting Scottish Cup tie right now. But thanks very much to all of our listeners for tuning in. We've also got the women's game playing on this Sunday against Airdrie in the Scottish Cup, as well as we'll play, I believe, Stirling the week after that as well. So players, a lot of people coming down for that would be great. And yeah, let's hope that can create a good couple of weeks for the Lothian's finest football team.
Throw into that, hopefully we'll have 2 stars above the badge soon when we've defended the Titanic Cup.
2 stars, a head of hair, and no teeth.
West Lothian is our battle cry. This is the place Livingston, oh Livingston, the Almonville Lions grow. Livingston, oh Livingston, we realize our vision. Livingston, oh Livingston, into the Premier